What did the Prophet of Allah say? Al-Jannatu tahta aqdamil ummahat. That paradise lies under the feet of the mother. What a simple statement by the Nabi of Allah. I know a few men that beat their wives. And they have beards. And they pray 5 times a day. And they think that this is okay. This is not Islam. But one of the greatest achievements of the Nabi of Allah was to bring all these people out of their prejudice, out of their own comfort zones, out of their own cultures, out of their own norms, and bring them on one platform of La ilaha illallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem amma ba'd. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. قال الله تعالى في الفرقان الحميد قل إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم والله غفور رحيم صدق الله العظيم. Say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to mankind, if you really love Allah, then follow me. Allah will love you and forgive you of your sins. And Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Allah has spoken the absolute complete truth. For the last 2 weeks, we have been discussing the reasons why we should spiritually and intellectually fall in love with Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We made mention in the first lesson that Jamal is a reason and Kamal is a reason. Kamal means perfection. We spoke about certain aspects that demonstrate that Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was perfect. And perfection in itself is an attraction. It allows people to fall in love. Then we spoke about the Jamal of the Nabi of Allah. That Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was outwardly very, very attractive, very good looking. That for many people is a reason to fall in love. Today we're going to speak about the third thing, and that is ihsan. Ihsan basically has many different connotations, many different meanings. But the meaning that we take for tonight is kindness. Ihsan means kindness. There's a saying in Arabic, Al-insan abdul ihsan. Al-insan abdul ihsan. That it is human nature that if somebody is kind to you, you are drawn to that person. You are enslaved to that person. And if we look at good people, pious people, prophets, they're always kind. Kindness allows people to gel. If we want to attract humanity to this beautiful message, kindness is the solution. Kindness is the solution. Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the day he stepped on this planet to the day he left this planet, he demonstrated kindness. And I would like to share the beautiful statement of Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu ta'ala anha, that she was asked that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came into Madinatul Munawwara at the age of 53. He departed at the age of 63. So he was there for a very short time of 10 years. But once he was leaving at the age of 63, the entire Arab Peninsula had accepted the faith that he brought. But the question that was posed to Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa, that we find that the people that accepted, they gave space to the Prophet of Allah in their heart. So the Prophet of Allah was not working upon the body completely. He was working upon taking the heart as well. And that's why now we are entering into winter. Let's say there is no hot water in the morning. We will make wudu with cold water. And there are many, many Muslims in areas that are not so prosperous. They do not have hot water. They do not have warm water. But they will make wudu in the morning with cold water. And this is the legacy of our Nabi of Allah, that he won the hearts of humanity. And that's why when this question was posed to Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa, that how did he achieve this success with limited resources, with 10 years? She said, Futihatil Madinatu bil akhlaq, that he conquered the entire Medina and the hearts of Madinatul Munawwara with his conduct, with his kindness. Al-insan abdul ihsan. So we're going to focus upon a few demonstrations of his kindness that will intellectually satisfy us and will allow us to truly fall in love with him spiritually and intellectually. So the first kindness. How many people are dropping left, right, center nowadays? One of my students a few days ago, Sister Bakit's daughter, who was my student, 29 years old, she did not wake up. She went to sleep. She did not wake up. My uncle in Pakistan, he went to sleep, didn't wake up. Just now, 2-3 days ago. We have Hafiz Luqman, he went to sleep, didn't wake up in the morning. And you find that when people leave, you start to look at this world differently. And there's a very strong statement that comes out at that time. And that statement is, Yaar, ye dunya dhokha hai. This world is a deception. I can fall tomorrow. But what gives us solace and tranquility and allows us to reconcile with all these losses that we experience in life, and that is the loss of human beings. Sometimes the loss in businesses. Sometimes marriages collapse. And people are totally disturbed by that. But the thing that comes to our rescue is the connection that we have with Allah Almighty. And we know that this is all designed for us. This is the script that Allah has written for each one of us. Everyone has a different script. The script for me is different than the script for you. But what is the same is that we need to play the script to the best of our ability. I need to be the best actor of my script, the best performer of my script. That's what I need to do. And every day there may be a new line that I have to learn. And sometimes it may be the same line of tomorrow. But the thing that allows us to reconcile with everything that is around us is the connection with Allah. The greatest kindness of Nabi Kareem Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is that he connected us with Allah. If you were to think about it, and I would like you to think about this when you go back home, that if Allah was not in our life, what life would we be living? If there was no concept of Allah, or it was an incorrect understanding of Allah, like there's many people throughout the world that claim to believe in Allah, but they have a wrong concept pertaining to Allah. And they don't have this understanding that we have, that is the complete understanding and the correct understanding. What life would we be living? And this is the greatest kindness. This in itself should allow us to lower ourselves to everything that he has said and everything that he has done. And this in itself demands that we should fall in love with him. And the only way you will do that is that sometimes just close your eyes and think that if you were living this life without Allah, without the concept of Allah, what would you be doing? And how would you reconcile with the losses in life, the pain in life, and the failures in life? It will be near to impossible to reconcile. So this is the first kindness. Then we find that Nabi Kareem Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did not only shower his kindness upon human beings, his kindness was for everyone. Imam Allama Jalaluddin Suyuti in Khasais Kubra, he makes mention that Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked Jibreel that Allah has said, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. I recited this verse in the first rak'ah. It's from Surah Anbiya, Surah number 21, verse 107. That Allah Almighty has sent you, O Prophet of Allah, as a mercy for mankind. And alameen is inclusive to all creatures. So the Prophet of Allah asked Jibreel, how is my coming kindness for you? What did I do for you? What did I do for you? So Jibreel said that before your arrival, I was always afraid how things are going to end. You don't know how things are going to end. You don't know how the future is going to unfold. At a certain time, the devil, he was very close. He was obedient. He was sharing, or you can say enjoying the celestial world. But then what happened? He made one mistake. He made one mistake. And everything was taken away from him. And he was doomed for eternity. So Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam said, I was always afraid because I knew that this has happened. That how will my end take place? But you are a mercy because when you came, you started to receive revelation. And revelation is not bound to time. And in Surah Takwir, Surah number 81, Allah Almighty sent down verses that made it very clear that I am Ameen. I am very close to Allah Almighty. And these words will echo till the day of judgment. So your coming has allowed me to settle down in terms of my end. I know that I'm going to be the friend of Allah Almighty for eternity. So Nabi Kareem Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when he came, he did not only speak about the rights of human beings, but he brought gifts for the entire creation. And inshallah, when we study the seerah, you will come to know of certain aspects. So he gave to friend, he gave to foe, and he gave to family members, and he gave to non-family members. And the amazing thing is that if we look at the entire human race, when they start giving, they give to their family more than their non-family. The Prophet of Allah gave to his non-family more than his own family. Think about it. We can accept zakat. His family can't accept zakat. Family cannot accept zakat. The Ahl Bayt cannot accept zakat. Everyone has servants in Madinatul Munawwara. His own daughter comes, Fatima, and she says, give me a servant. And the Prophet of Allah doesn't. Because they are the role models. They were deprived of certain bounties that others were enjoying because of Islam. And they are the reason of Islam. But the Prophet of Allah kept him away from all those bounties. And you will not find that the Prophet of Allah even once said, Ya Allah, this incident that is going to be the reason for my family to be slaughtered, and 80 of my family members are going to be slaughtered in Karbala, Ya Allah, stop it. He knew of it, but he didn't say stop it. He didn't say, Ya Allah, stop it. He never said that. Because this deen, this religion, it will only prosper through sacrifice. Allah demands sacrifice. So the Nabi of Allah came and he focused not only upon those that were with him, but his vision was beyond that. It was beyond Madinatul Munawwara. It was beyond the Persian Empire. It was beyond the Roman Empire. He was looking into time till the day of judgment. He was looking at you and me and everyone. And what he said will secure salvation for each one of us. So the kindness had no limitation. And his kindness is not only restricted to this dunya that is to end. His kindness will be on full demonstration on the day of judgment. when each prophet will break ties with his community. This statement, nafsi, nafsi, is a statement that indicates prophets will break their connection with communities, with their own people. They'll be afraid of their ending, how Allah is going to treat them. They will not want to know about their own communities. You think about it, Hazrat Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, he preached for 950 years. He didn't curse his people. The curse that we come to know in Surah Nuh came after a verse that was sent down to him that we find in Surah Hud. So Surah Nuh is Surah number 71. Rabbi la tadhar ala al-ard min al-kafirin dayyara, that Allah destroy them all. Why did he say this after 950 years? Was he fed up? No, Allah Almighty sent down a revelation. And that revelation is documented in Surah Hud, Surah number 11, verse number 36. وَأُوحِيَ إِلَى نُوحٍ أَنَّهُ لَن يُؤْمِنَ مِنْ قَوْمِكَ. That from now onwards, no one is going to accept Islam. That's it. The 82 people, 83 people that have accepted, they've accepted. No one else is going to accept now. That's when he made the curse. Remember that. That's when he made the curse. No one is going to accept from now onwards. But even on the day of judgment, Hazrat Nuh is going to have no connection with these people. But the Prophet of Allah, because he is Rahmatul lil Alameen, his kindness will be on full demonstration when everyone will fall short and everyone will become self-centered, if I can use that word. The Prophet of Allah will not be thinking about himself, not thinking about his children. He will be thinking about his entire nation. And ummati, ummati, the word is in itself giving us a good indication of the connection that the Prophet of Allah has. Yesterday was Mother's Day. Yesterday was Mother's Day. We had an open day in Gladstone. I was in Gladstone and we were speaking about Mother's Day. And one statement, you think about it. Of course, it's easy to say that one day in a year, let's come together, sons and daughters, let's make a good meal. Let's make that day special for the mother. That's what all Mother Day is about. But when we study the teachings of the Nabi of Allah, study the teachings of the Nabi of Allah, we find that that kindness is at a level that we cannot comprehend. The words that he says about certain groups of people to elevate them. And you have to understand that nowadays speaking about human rights is very, very easy. It doesn't take much effort. There's no resentment. There's no opposition. There's no enemy. Everyone jumps on the bandwagon because you're speaking about human rights. But in the time of the Nabi of Allah, to speak about human rights was near to impossible. And especially rights for my sisters, for the mother, for the daughter, for the sister, for the wife. It was near to impossible. So the Prophet of Allah, his kindness came to the rescue for male and female, for animals, for the entire atmosphere. Nowadays, people are speaking about the environment. The Prophet of Allah has spoken about the environment 1400 years ago. And these will be words that if they are shared 2000 years from now, it has sufficient ruling to cover the problems pertaining to that topic at that time. That's the beauty, that's the richness of Prophet Muhammad's words. So yesterday was Mother's Day. What did the Prophet of Allah say? Al-Jannatu tahta aqdamil ummahat. That paradise lies under the feet of the mother. What a simple statement by the Nabi of Allah that is inclusive to all areas and all ahwal and all scenarios pertaining to mother's right. I shared this yesterday, and a few ladies, non-Muslims, they came afterwards and they said, did your Prophet say that? Because they had never heard a statement like that. And I made it very clear, it doesn't mean that if you go searching for paradise under the feet, you will find paradise. That's not the meaning of this. We have to understand the hadith in the time when it was said, and what were the proverbs, and what were the meanings at that time. Dropping into the feet is showing complete obedience. Dropping into the feet means complete obedience. Complete obedience to the mother of Allah will bring you to paradise. This is the shortcut. This was the kindness from the Nabi of Allah for the mothers. And as we know, there was no inheritance for ladies. And I would like to say this to my beautiful sisters. Allah grant you happiness. You do a lot for the men. You keep the house together. Allah Almighty reward you for that. Don't be deceived. Don't be deceived by Muslim statements and critics of Islam statements pertaining to rights of women. Your rights were delivered, and no one can deliver those rights to women better than what the Nabi of Allah has delivered. Everything now is taken from those rights. These rights have been spoken about. Nowadays, one of the questions yesterday that was posed was about domestic violence. Islam does not allow domestic violence. It's very sad when they say that, what does Islam say about domestic violence? And this is a question that comes from the non-Muslims to people that are conducting a program, thinking that we beat our wives, thinking that Islam allows the beating of wives. How can the Nabi of Allah allow this? And let me say to the men, your salahs, because I know a few men that beat their wives. And they have beards. And they pray 5 times a day. And they think that this is okay. This is not Islam. This is not Islam. If the Nabi of Allah is kind to Abu Jahl, do you think he will not be kind to Hazrat Khadija? He's kind to Abu Lahab and he will not be kind to Hazrat Aisha? We take one verse 34 of Surah An-Nisa where you're allowed to beat, and we don't understand what the meaning of that is, and we say that we're allowed to beat our wives. Be very, very careful. The Prophet of Allah was an embodiment of kindness. And keep in mind, sisters, if there's any treatment that any Muslim country is doing, any treatment that Muslims are doing in a Muslim country, or any scholar comes across and he says that it is allowed to do this with a lady, basically he has not understood. He has not understood the mizaj of Islam, the mizaj of this beautiful religion, and the mizaj and the temperament of Nabi Kareem Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. You know, a lot of people say about the beard. I'm not trying to knock anyone here. Some people say, is the beard faraz, is it wajib, it is sunnah? This is what they come to me, a lot of people. I try to keep out of rulings. I try to not speak about jurisprudence from the pulpit, because it causes division, because people are from different backgrounds. I said, don't ask any alim about the beard. Did the Prophet of Allah have a beard? Did he have a beard? Yes. If he had a beard, then grow it. And if you are not growing it, at least believe that I should grow it. Did the Prophet of Allah strike any of his wives whilst he was married to them? He was married from the age of 25 to the age of 63. Not with one, but with many. Did he strike even one wife? Forget about the verse. Forget about the verse. Forget about the hadith. Because the Prophet of Allah is the explanation of the Quran and the hadith. Did he strike anyone? So how do we get this understanding that we are allowed to strike our wives, to discipline them? Who's going to discipline you? So you are disciplining your wife by striking your wife. Who's going to discipline you? Think about this. This religion is built upon the foundation of kindness. Win the hearts. So the Nabi of Allah speaks about the rights of women. And the very famous statement, and this is the kindness of the Prophet of Allah, the best person is the person that is good with his wife, with his family. خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُ لِنِسَاءِ وَخَيْرُكُمْ لِنِسَاءِ. That I am the best person to my wife and to my family. That is the demonstration, that is the meaning, that is the explanation of the Quran. You know, for the first 100, 150 years, people used to just look. People just used to look. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, most of his jurisprudence is not upon the hadith. It is upon optics. It's upon observation. Because he lived with those people that lived with the Sahaba. That is in itself enough. If the Prophet of Allah is here right now, you don't have to ask him how to pray. You just look at how he prays. He's the demonstration. That is good enough. So most of Imam Abu Hanifa's work, and I'm a Hanfi, is optics. He took his religion from Hammad, and then Hammad down takes it from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud in Kufa, where there were 70 Badri Sahaba. They used to look. This is their understanding, the kindness of the deen. So don't go on one hadith, and don't try to learn the hadith yourself. So this was the kindness of the Nabi of Allah towards the women, and this is a topic in itself. Then one of the greatest things he did, and this is something amazing, the more we read about the seerah, how did he achieve this success? This was from Allah Almighty. There was a divine intervention here. There was a divine, you can't do this. The entire Arab Peninsula, and when we speak about the Quraysh, let's start speaking about Quraysh next week. We're going to speak about the clans in the Arab Peninsula. So you need to be switched on next week. So now these are all stories. Next week we're starting. We're going to start off from the Quraysh. Who are the Quraysh? How many tribes? All right? And for that, you just can't rock up. You just can't rock up. You need to come with a paper and a pen. You need to come with a paper and a pen, or you're not going to understand. So this is not just a lecture. The first 2 and 3 is a lecture to get you excited. But next week is serious studying. All right? And it's going to be very confusing. So many tribes. We're going to speak about these tribes. What is Quraysh? Where does Quraysh come from? Li'ila fi Quraysh. So we need to understand this. We need to understand the makeup of Makkatul Mukarramah, Madinatul Munawwara, so we can understand the stories better. One of the greatest achievements of the Nabi of Allah was to bring all these people out of their prejudice, out of their own comfort zones, out of their own cultures, out of their own norms, and bring them on one platform of La ilaha illallah. It was not in their DNA to accept anyone else. That's why the Prophet of Allah, he received most opposition from the Quraysh. Most opposition from the Quraysh. We'll learn about this next week. It was not in their DNA to accept anyone. But the Prophet of Allah, in 10 to 20 years, he brought all these people together. We don't have those problems. They had those problems in them before the Prophet of Allah arrived. Listen to what I'm saying, very important. They had those problems. The Nabi of Allah came, and you will understand this deeper next week or in the next few weeks. And then the Prophet of Allah united them. United them. We don't have these problems, but we're creating these problems. We don't have these problems from the outset, but we are creating these problems. So we can't be united. So we are disunited. Always look at the word and the action that you commit to. Is it unifying us in terms of brothers? I'm not talking about jurisprudence. In terms as a Muslim ummah. What is my feeling in my heart? Because this goes against the ihsan, the kindness. The kindness should always be there towards our Muslim brothers and sisters. Anything that is breaking my heart, making my heart toxic towards my brothers and sisters, it's going to be impossible for me to do my main work, and that is da'wah. And that's why they're saying, this is very important, that you can't invite a non-Muslim to Islam if you have dislike for the non-Muslim. It can't happen. Your words are going to translate the dislike that you have inside. So it's a fine line. You dislike kufr. You dislike kufr. But you have to have some love for the person. Because if you don't have love for that person, your words are going to translate the emotions and the sentiment that is inside. That's why a person can say, yes, your father and mother is going to burn in the fire of hell, like I said last week. Because he's not looking at the person with kindness. He's got a grudge there. He's got hatred there. How can a person be a da'i? When the Quran says that when you're giving da'wah, it has to be with hikmah, it has to be with wisdom, it has to be with kindness. The heart has to be good. And this is the beautiful legacy of the Nabi of Allah, that he united everyone. All those that were fragmented, broken up, and very comfortable in their own zones. And I'm talking about the 10 tribes of Quraysh. There's many more, but we'll speak about 10. He brought them all together. He brought them all together. And how he brought them together, this is very important. I find, and nowadays we need to learn from the seerah and apply it in our daily lives. I find that if we start speaking about complex issues, demanding issues to a person that is a non-practicing Muslim or a non-Muslim, it is a deterrent. You have to present the religion in a manner that he can accept where he is at that time. And then let him build his spiritual capacity to take on complex issues. You can't start too early. That's why they say in a marathon, this is a marathon. In a marathon, if you start running too quick, too early, you lose power. And at the end, you come second or third. You need to know the right time when to start the race, when to start running properly. The Ethiopian runners, the African runners, they're very good in this. I remember there was one Sebastian Coe, long time ago from England, my time. And he was unique in this. Right at the end, in the last 50 meters, he's right at the 4th or 5th, and then he used to accelerate. We need to know when to accelerate. We accelerate too early. That's why when a person comes to become a Muslim, you find these enthusiastic Muslims, they're pushing down the whole deen down his throat right there and then. You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. He's going, You have to be very careful. Kindness is what the Prophet of Allah, he won the hearts by kindness. Now what was that kindness? He said, La fadla li Arabi ala al-ajami. No one is superior. No one is superior than the other. We are all the same. And the thing that makes us superior is something that we cannot detect. We do not have the gauge. Because the Prophet of Allah says, the reason why somebody will be superior is taqwa. But is taqwa in our mobile? Then I look what taqwa levels I have. Taqwa hahuna is here. And there's no machine and no gadget in the world that can tell you what kind of taqwa is inside here. No gadget. So you have to be very, very careful. At-taqwa hahuna. It's not your external. It's not your 5 daily prayers alone. It's not your giving of zakat or being in the masjid alone. That's not taqwa. Taqwa is an entire package. There may be a person that is praying, but something that he does wrong on the other side is destroying the health of his heart. So we need to be very, very careful. So the Prophet of Allah united everyone on this platform by making them understand that you are not superior. And as a demonstration, the Prophet of Allah, the Sahaba, when they used to come many a times, they used to say that, people came from outside. And think about it. Let's say this is a majlis of the Prophet of Allah. How humble he was, how ajib. Somebody from outside, he could not identify, where's the Prophet? Right now, if anyone comes, they can identify who the Imam is. Right now. I'm sitting on a higher chair. Don't you think that the Prophet of Allah attracted a crowd like this in Madinatul Munawwarah? Think about it. Do you think his crowd would be about this big? Of course. They say that the population of Medina was about 20,000 people. 20,000 people. But now Muslims are starting to come into Islam. There will be about 100, 200 people. These are very, very staunch followers. But if somebody came from outside, who's the Prophet? Read between the lines. What does that mean? Where's the Prophet? Can't see the Prophet. Now we take it in another way. We say that everyone emulated the Prophet and they look like the Prophet. But what about the Prophet himself? Where was he hiding? So humble, so kind. With everyone. He was open. He didn't display himself as somebody special amongst them. He knew that he was special. He knew that he was special. He was a shy person. Everyone knew that he was special, but it was never that he wanted to be special. Because once a person truly understands who Allah Almighty is, he doesn't want to be special. He knows he's not special. Because everything belongs to Allah Almighty. Now, all this, the kindness, everything, all right. Now, 1 or 2 stories. We've run out of time, and next week we want to start about the Quraysh. So, introduction is finished now. So, we're going to speak about Quraysh next week. Let's just make mention of one story from a human, one story from an animal, to understand the love that the people had. In our family structure, and this is for the sisters to understand, and we can reverse this as well, but the story is for the sisters. You have a husband, very close relationship. Father, very close relationship. And brother. So these are the 3 men in the life of a lady that support the lady. They shelter the lady, they cover the lady, they take care of the lady. All right. So in the battle of Uhud, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was injured, he fainted. The news that went out initially is that Nabi Akram has passed away. Now we will study that when we reach there in the Battle of Uhud. But one of the news that went out was that Nabi Akram has died. So there was a lady. When she heard this, she came running. She couldn't hold herself. She was running towards the battlefield. Now in the battlefield, her husband had died. Because 70 Sahaba were martyred. Husband had died. Son had died. And brother has died. These are 3 relationships he has lost in the battlefield. She does not know. She has come out because the news is that Prophet Muhammad has died. So she's running. She's very stressed. She's looking around. The first person comes and says, "Do you know that your husband has died?" She doesn't give it any importance. Because her eyes are searching for the Nabi of Allah. So she's not worried about her husband. Another person comes and says, "Your son has died." It's amazing. What would these people? Your son has died. She doesn't give any importance to the second news. Now it must be ringing in her mind that my husband has died. My son has died. But her eyes are not searching for the dead body of her husband and her son. Her eyes are still searching for the Nabi of Allah. Then another person comes and says, "Do you know your brother has died as well?" One news after another. Losing the most important male relationships in her life. And then a 4th person comes and says, "Nare takbir, alhamdulillah, the Prophet of Allah is not dead, he is alive." Now she reconnects with the news. We have to understand the hadith like this. Don't read the hadith cursory, artificially. Try to be in that moment. Now she reconnects with the news. Now she comes back. So now she knows that the Prophet of Allah. The search for the Prophet of Allah ends. The search for the Nabi of Allah ends because the Nabi of Allah is alive. The news now comes to the front that my father has died, my husband has died, and my son has died. But what does she say? What a remarkable, amazing, deep statement that she makes. Kullu musibatin ba'daka julal. That every misfortune and every loss after listening to the news that the Prophet of Allah is alive is nothing. Nothing. The Prophet of Allah is alive, alhamdulillah, that's it. That allowed her to cope with the loss of husband, son, and brother. This was the impact that the Prophet of Allah had upon the lives of people. He had a donkey. The hadith is in Mishkatul Masabi. He had a donkey. The donkey's name was Ya'fur. I wanted to give one more lecture next week, but I want to get into the Quraysh, that how did the Muslims preserve the life of the Prophet of Allah. It's amazing. Ar-Rihla fi Talab al-Hadith. There are books on this, but I won't get into that. But it's amazing. They have even mentioned, they have preserved the names of all the chickens that he had, all the ducks that he had, all the donkeys that he had, all the camels that he had, all the bakris, the goats that he had. Everything is preserved. It's ajib. Every single fine detail. A chicken, how long that chicken lived for. It's ajib. You want me to speak about that next week, or do you want to get into Quraysh? You want to get into Quraysh, I knew it. All right. So there was a donkey. The donkey's name was Ya'fur. Ya'fur. When Nabi Kareem passed away, we know what happened to the Sahaba. The only one that was cool, calm, and collected was Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq. Everyone else lost it. But there was one donkey. That donkey lost it. There's a hadith in Mishkatul Masabi. The donkey started to cry. It came to know. This was the impact of the Prophet of Allah on donkeys. Let's be better than that donkey. You know, we make fun of donkeys. Why do we make fun of donkeys? Because we think that donkeys are not sensible, not intelligent. This donkey lost it, cried all day, and at night time jumped into the well and died. This hadith in Mishkatul Masabi. Donkey's name was Ya'fur. Jumped into the well. You can say committed suicide. Don't get into this topic. Was it halal or haram? That's how the mind works of the Muslims. Oh, was it halal? That he committed suicide. Astaghfirullah. That's not the issue here. There's no law for the donkey. And the hadith of Bukhari regarding that, you know, when the Prophet of Allah used to give khutbah, he used to give khutbah, and then there used to be a tree. There used to be a tree, and he used to lean on that tree like this and give khutbah. So now the Sahaba said, let's make a pulpit. So they made a pulpit. So now he's leaving the tree. And the Sahaba said, we all hear the first day when he is going to give khutbah and he has left the tree starts crying. The tree starts crying like a baby. This hadith in Bukhari. So the Prophet of Allah has to go back and cuddle the tree. And said that this parting ways is not for eternity. I've read in another hadith that the Prophet of Allah said to this trunk, to this tree, that we are parting ways now, but remain quiet, don't cry. You will be established in my Jannah. That's when it stopped crying. So even the trees understood the Nabi of Allah. Ya'fur donkey understood the Nabi of Allah. Why can't Uzair, Brother Umar, Brother Sanihad, my brothers, my sisters understand Allah Almighty? Understand the Nabi of Allah. Let's love the Nabi of Allah. Alright? There's no reason why we shouldn't. And don't allow anything to pollute your minds, especially my sisters, because there's a lot of organizations that are out there, and there's a lot of liberal, I say, thinkers that sometimes they come up with weird things that Islam allows this, and nowadays modern world is given rights. This is all garbage. It's all garbage. No one can give you more rights than what Allah can give you. And any right that is beyond that right is not your right. Remember this. No one can give you more rights than Allah Almighty. He is the creator. And He has delivered those rights to the Prophet of Allah completely. Any right that is beyond that right is not your right. Like it is, let's say this is my house, and I say that this is my house and you're allowed to come into this house. I say to you, you're allowed to come into this house from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Now you can only come between 9 and 10. If you come before that, if you come after that, it is not your right. Allah is the one who decides what is the right for the men and what is the right for the women. And anything beyond that is not your right. And if we try to take anyone's right, it is known as zulm. If you hold on to any right that has not been given by Allah, it is zulm. It is wrongdoing. So inshallah, on this, keep in mind, we've spoken about kamal, perfection, jamal, beauty, and ihsan, kindness. And these all three that are magnets alone, all three can be found in the Prophet of Allah to the highest level. So Allah Almighty grant us the complete love of Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inshallah, next week, serious topic is starting the Quraysh, right? It's very complicated. I was getting mixed up in my mind today, studying it all. So I've done it maybe 2 years ago, but it was new, but it's very, very confusing, but it is very good to get to an understanding of what the Prophet of Allah was facing in his lifetime. Inshallah, after the dua, there's supper across the road. The amount that it cost us now is $500, not $400. All right, for each meal, so you can contribute that to that. So if somebody wants to contribute 50, 100, just come to myself or Brother Juwaid, but do contribute towards it. I think we have some brothers that they come every week. They've been coming for the last 2 weeks. What do you call it? Crepe or whatever you call it. Crepes. Yeah, not crepes. So crepes. So something new for me. So they have these machines, and mashallah, they're given these crepes. Mashallah, Allah Almighty reward them. I don't know if they're here tonight, but and that is for the men and for the women. What we want is that the children come. They're connected to the masjid. Make this program a family program. We're going to continue this for 2 or 3 years, and every time you come, try to do something. Come with your tongue moist with darood. It's the program of the Prophet. So Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, come in. When you leave in Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Let's do one more thing. The Prophet of Allah used to love fragrance. Use some good fragrance. Come in. I'm not saying that you smell. I'm not saying that. All right. But the program, right, demands that some good fragrance you come. So this, inshallah, this entire masjid, upstairs and sisters downstairs is mu'attar.